Morning, Canada! Welcome back to another episode of Question Period. Today is June 19th, 2024, and we are in the final stretch of Question Period before the summer break. They are taking off for their 3-month-long vacation in what's supposed to be on Friday, their last day. I think, based off of history, that this might actually be the last day. It is Caucus Leader Day. Justin Trudeau is indeed scheduled to appear in the House, as is Jagmeet, as is Pierre. And what you're likely to see right after Question Period or later this evening is a vote which will be unanimous for them to take off early. So brace yourself. This is going to be crazy. This is the last motherload, the last episode before we see them after the summer break, and who knows what life in Canada will look like 3 months from now. We're going day to day here, man. This is crazy. So buckle up. This is going to be a good one. All right, you're going to want to get situated. You want to get yourself a coffee, or you can get a matching sticker link down below in the description so that we match. Get yourself a beer, get yourself situated. Make sure you like the stream. Let's try and get a few hundred likes before we begin Question Period. Make sure that you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss any notifications. Even though they're going to be off for 3 months, videos are still going to be coming out on this channel, and you're not going to want to miss the notification for when they come back into Parliament 3 months from now. So once you've liked the video, once you subscribe, check to see if you've subscribed, turn those notifications on, and you got yourself situated, we are ready to rock and roll, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank everybody for being here. It's been an honor to do these streams since the last time I've made this announcement. It's been one hell of a ride since the winter break. We've had some ups, we've had some downs. I want to thank the community for being lively in the chat. I want to thank the mods. I want to thank everyone that's contributed by liking the video, by commenting, by sharing. I want to thank the channel members, especially. Thank you very much for your support. I want to thank everyone who's given super chats. And I want to thank my mom, God, who cares at this point? Thank everybody. All right, without further ado, guys, girls, everyone in between, this is going to be awesome. They're doing statements by members for the next 10, 15, I don't even want to say 20 minutes, 15 minutes at max. So let's get into this here. This is going to be wild. It's going to be absolutely wild.
Member for Beauvoir, Beaupré, Irlande and Charlevoix. It was at the raising of the traps off Fleurillon on May 27th. A rogue wave capsized the Malbaie Star. What could have been the worst maritime tragedy in a long time in the St. Lawrence was averted thanks to Maxime Boulet. 4 of the 5 sailors ended up under the ship, and only Maxime managed to hold on to the upside-down hull. Numb from the freezing water, he dialed 911 and managed to call the nearest boat, Steve Boulet's. Then, one by one, he managed to bring his 4 colleagues back onto the hull and keep them out of the water with him. 20 minutes later, Steve Boulet's boat and crew brought them back to the dock. Shocked, some of them didn't want to set sail again. But they are all alive. The entire Bloc Québécois team would like to pay tribute to Maxime for his mental strength and courage. Without him, 4 Quebec sailors would be missing today. Bravo, and thank you, Maxime Boulet. The Honourable Member for Marc-Aurèle Fortin. Thank you. Mr. Speaker,
thank you.
Today, I'd like to pay tribute to one of Laval's great builders, Mr. Robert Plante, president of R&R Plante, who was also a city councillor for the Laurier-des-Bois sector.
I also want to make a special announcement. Who cares what this guy has to say? Between now and, I guess my wife's due date is like in the first couple of weeks of July. So my son will be born in probably no later than 30 days, 20 days, 25 days from now. So I'm absolutely blessed. I'm going to have my hands full this summer with, my daughter that's almost 2 years old, and my son, which is going to be born any day now. Theoretically, any day. So very excited about that. And thank you, everybody, for giving me this opportunity to do these live streams, to, try and entertain or just share my opinions with you guys. And that helps put food on my family's table. So thank you, everybody.
Years of loyal service. The family will continue to perpetuate the company's excellence as a tribute to their very committed parents. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thanks, everyone, for the congratulations.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, after 9 years meddling in Quebec's jurisdiction, the Liberals are doing it again. Once again, they are taking it out on forestry workers, as they tend to do. We heard that the Environment Minister from the Plateau Montréal does not understand what's going on in the...
Hey, big shout out to Nelson and Chris from Saskatchewan. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being a participant in not only this channel, but in the community. Very much appreciated. Thank you, guys.
Enough. No more radical decrees like that. And what's worse, they want to get involved in the Quebec's jurisdiction when it comes to the caribou. The Bloc member from Matane says that. So that's why the common sense Conservatives will always protect forestry workers and their paychecks so that they can continue to do their job and feed their families. The Honourable Member of Vimy.
I rise today to urge the Government of Canada to purchase the National Field of Honour Military Cemetery in Pointe-Claire, Quebec, where 22,500 Canadians and Allied veterans are laid to rest. It is Canada's largest military cemetery and a National Historic Site, and under the care and responsibility.
Oh, there we go. Foreign interference right there with the stream. What's going on?
Profit Loss Post Fund, which is quickly running out of funds. Un financement temporaire.
Temporary funding is a short-term solution. We need permanent solutions.
Because it maintains the site in perpetuity, demonstrates a commitment to veterans and families, preserves national and international honor. We can show support by signing petition E4984, which has already been signed by hundreds, including former federal and provincial ministers, former Governor General, and the Chief of the Armed Forces. Assurons-nous que ceux-ci...
Let's make sure that the symbol of our national pride is respected by all Canadians and stays.
The Honourable Member from Etobicoke Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honour a distinguished diplomat, an accomplished historian, a great Irishman, and most of all, a wonderful friend to Canada. His Excellency Dr. Eamon McKee and his wife Mary McGillis McKee came to Canada 4 years ago. For anyone else coming during a pandemic would have caused many hardships to make a mark. For Eamon, he dove into what he called a journey of discovery, discovering the rich shared heritage between our two countries. Eamon has greatly contributed to increased trade, business, and strengthening our ties.
I might have to change my name to Mr. Sunshine Babies.
Those ties with him during Irish Nights on
No
the Hill,
doubt.
Irish Heritage Month, many visits by Irish leaders. However, his historical research and exploration have unearthed the depth of the Irish contribution to Canada. In short, he has taught us about ourselves over and over again. Thank you, Eamon and Mary, for your contributions and furthering this fantastic relationship, but most of all, for your friendship. Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member from St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, who's Randy? The Minister of Employment has a 50% stake in a shady company. Someone from the company named Randy is implicated in a $500,000 fraud. The minister says he's not that Randy. Yet, incredibly, for the past 2 weeks, he's been unable to identify who that other Randy is. Global News can't find him, and the company's COO conveniently can't recall his name. There is no trace of him. We're talking about a 5-person company. If there were another Randy, it wouldn't be so difficult to find this individual.
That's a good point.
Everyone knows who Randy is. It's the Minister of Employment. The minister is implicated in a $500,000 fraud. He broke the Conflict of Interest Act, and he needs to face the consequences.
Hear, hear, hear.
That Conflict of Interest Act is one hell of a thing.
Waterloo.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, it is an honour to represent the people of the riding of Waterloo here in the House of Commons.
In Ottawa, or when constituents visit me to advocate on the behalf of organizations and issues of importance to them, as well as to discover Parliament Hill and our House of Commons. Today I rise to personally thank everyone who helps to make these experiences even more memorable, including the Sergeant-at-Arms, Pat McDonnell, and his entire team, the Parliamentary Protective Service officers, pages, interpreters, parking, bus, and food service teams, and the amazing crews at the Parliamentary Restaurant and cafeterias. I also share my appreciation with Clara, Allison, Nikki, Josh, Seraphia, and Catherine. Mr. Speaker, on countless occasions, colleagues have taken the time to exchange a hello or to pose for a picture with my guests. To me, these remain some of the best moments on Parliament Hill, and I am grateful. On behalf of the constituents of the riding of Waterloo, thank you to all who work on the Hill. Your kindness is both noticed and appreciated, and we wish everyone a safe and happy summer. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Brantford Grant.
Mr. Speaker, this government is not worth the cost or the...
Whoa.
Yesterday, the RCMP confirmed that there are not just...
He's got a medal on?
...numerous investigations into the Prime Minister's Arrive scam. It was also disclosed that there are more than 6 ongoing investigations related to the Arrive scam fraud and shady government contracting. The app, which could have been built over a weekend for a mere $200,000, instead ballooned into a $60 million disaster built on corrupt practices, mismanagement, and a blatant disregard for taxpayer money. The RCMP should be interviewing everyone as part of their mandate, including the Prime Minister, his ministers, and all government officials involved. Canadians deserve to know how deep this Liberal rot really is.
Oh, it's a merit award.
Will continue to demand transparency, expose criminality, and show Canadians why it is time for common sense Conservatives to lead this country.
The honourable member from Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock.
Speaker, yes,
Queen's Platinum Jubilee.
Reports that under this Liberal government, Canadians are living in poverty. It has risen from 1 in 10 to now 1 in 4. That's nearly 6 million more Canadians than is reflected in its most recent poverty rate data. If you're Indigenous, it's worse still, with 1 in 3 living in poverty. According to the MDI, a poverty metric that's widely used in Europe, 30%
he unlocked an achievement.
of 18 to 30-year-olds, 44.5% of
no doubt.
households, and 42% of renters can't afford 2 or more household essentials. The Liberal government's own carbon tax data shows that the scheme costs every household in Canada almost $2,000 and has deprived the country of $30.5 billion in lost economic activity. While the Liberals raise taxes, more and more Canadians are falling into poverty. The Minister of the Environment is not worth the cost. When will he resign?
Hear, 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 hear. L'honorable député...
The honourable member for Argenteuil-La-Petite-Nation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
How about them Oilers last night, huh? Holy smokes, man.
Gone too soon at the age of 67. She is a woman of heart who cherished her family and was full of love.
Let's get some
7 years of her life.
GGs for the Oilers down in the chat.
To her husband, Frank, she was a passionate lover. To her daughter, Giovanna, an unrivaled confidant. And to her granddaughter, Giada, an unconditional confidant. Sylvie was my number one supporter, Mr. Speaker. She was always there for the good times and also for the harder times. She was an inseparable companion to her brothers, and one of whom was in politics and the other one was in business. She was more than a sister. She was a loving mother. She was a devoted grandmother, and she was a pillar for the entire family. She was a champion of electoral campaigns, and she demonstrated leadership with the volunteers. I love you, dear sister. You will be in my thoughts always. Your memory and your being will be with us forever. Please say hello to Mom, Dad, and my other 2 sisters who are in heaven. We miss you terribly, but your spirit guides us every day. Rest in peace, dear sister.
Toutes nos condoléances.
Our deepest condolences.
Strathcona.
Speaker, June is Indigenous History Month, a time to celebrate the peoples whose land we call Canada. As settlers on Turtle Island, it is our job to stand up and attest to the genocide perpetrated by Canada against Indigenous peoples. It is our job to acknowledge the truth. It is our job to seek reconciliation. But Indigenous History Month is not just about the past. It is also about right now, today and tomorrow, and every day to come. Today, right now, Indigenous people are sleeping on the street or in an encampment if they are lucky and the police have not come to
foreign interference.
There will be celebrations. There will be glorious dances and the beat of the drum. There will be love and there will be gratitude for all that the Creator has given. But for me and for Canadians like me, there must also be a reckoning. A recognition not only of the genocide of the past, but of the racist systems and institutions that we have designed and built that persist still today to destroy Indigenous peoples. Yes.
L'honorable député de Belleuil-Chambly.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly, Mr. Speaker. In a few days, Quebec will celebrate itself in all of its pride, in its song, and its dance, and its words, in a tribute to Jean-Pierre Ferland and Carl Tremblay, who have no longer among us. Let us celebrate those who have added to the diversity of a French-speaking nation in the Americas for over 400 years. We have been a force for thousands of years, thanks to the Indigenous people as well. Let us celebrate this nation full of heart, which is also full of solidarity and is a welcoming nation. Let us celebrate the French language, the language that unites us the more we speak it. And let us live together and celebrate together. Let us celebrate our Quebec. It is a country of the future, and let us say to ourselves with a smile that this is truly a national celebration. Happy birthday, Quebec.
The honourable member from Edmonton, Mill Woods.
Last week, when the Edmonton Oilers were down by 3 games, just 1 game away from elimination, many people wrote them off. But Oilers fans across the country knew it wasn't over yet. A hard-fought win in Game 4, and last night, the Oilers pulled off another victory and dragged the Panthers all the way back to Alberta. This team...
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
All cylinders. Edmonton-born Stuart Skinner, who played with the Southside Athletics in my riding, has been phenomenal in net. And on the third line, stepping up with Connor Brown, getting a crucial shorthanded goal when they needed it. And of course, team captain Connor McDavid is setting all new points records. And now the Stanley Cup Final is back in Edmonton for Game 6. Let's bring it home.
Yeah. Let's go. Game 6. Oh, she's wearing the Oilers jersey. No doubt.
Go, Edmonton, go.
The only thing I've ever agreed that the Mr. Speaker has said, go, Edmonton, go. Very nice.
The Honourable Member for Outremont.
I rise today to talk about women's health and the need for a greater understanding of how injury and disease presents and is treated in the female body. And I do so following my own experience after suffering a concussion. Reviews have shown that as little as 7% of the studies on brain injuries take into account gender differences and how women are impacted. I understand that women's bodies are more complex in a number of ways, Mr. Speaker, but this is the anatomy of 51% of the population. Accounting for gender differences in healthcare is the next frontier. After gender parity, after pay equity, after the Me Too movement, this is where we are going.
Pay equity.
Mr. Speaker, I am recovering from a concussion. This was a difficult experience, but I learned an awful lot. And I would like to speak to my constituents, my colleagues as well, all of those who shared their stories with me. It is thanks to you that I have learned.
That explains why you're dumb. You had a concussion.
Our vulnerability is an integral part of our humanity.
I get it.
From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you all.
questions.
Oral questions. Questions orales. Honourable Leader of the Opposition, Canada's Sex Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this parliamentary session, we once again saw that everything in Canada is broken. Housing costs have doubled. Millions of Canadians are going to food banks. 25% of Canadians, a record level, are living in poverty after 9 years of this Liberal Prime Minister, with the support of the Bloc Québécois. Is this Prime Minister going to force Canadians to suffer for another 18 months of this hell? Or will he call elections right now so that Canadians can elect a government that will cut taxes, build housing, fix the budget, and stop the crime?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Trudeau doesn't care about the polls, he said.
Right, Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, if the leader of the Conservative Party really cared about the affordability crisis, he would support our dental care plan for seniors and youth. He would be helping us to support 400,000 children a year so that they can access school food programs. He would be supporting our measures to make more childcare spots available. He would be supporting our ambitious plan to increase housing and densification. But instead, he's playing petty partisan games instead of delivering for Canadians.
Call an election.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, we've already seen what these policies are like for 9 years. They are causing the poverty and problems that I talked about earlier. And now he wants to force Quebec to shut down the forestry sector. We learned from the Quebec Natural Resources Ministry that this may kill up to 30,000 jobs, but the Bloc Québécois doesn't have a single word to say against it. Will this Prime Minister put an end to this radical decree so that we can save the jobs of 30,000 Quebec workers? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, unlike the leader of the Conservative Party, Quebecers know very well that the only way to build a stronger future is by protecting both the economy and the environment at the same time. That is how we will create a more prosperous future for Quebecers and all Canadians. But once again, we see that the Conservative Party has an anti-environmental approach. We will continue to work with the government of Quebec. We will continue to work hard to protect forestry jobs and to protect caribou. That is what people expect from a responsible government.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
What this session of Parliament taught us is that after 9 years of this Prime Minister, everything is broken. 25% of Canadians are now living in poverty. 2 million lined up at food banks. 38% more people are homeless. Housing costs have doubled. It wasn't like this before this Prime Minister, and it won't be like this after he's gone. Will he put us through another year and a half of this costly hell, or will he call a carbon tax election today so we can elect a common sense government to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, if the Leader of the Opposition actually cared more about Canadians than he does about his own political interests, he'd be supporting the 400,000 kids we're going to help with the National School Food Program. He'd be voting in favour, instead of opposing at every turn, the dental care program that has already helped over 200,000 seniors and will now, as of next week, start helping young people and Canadians with disabilities. He'd be standing with us on expanding childcare spaces instead of campaigning against it. But, Mr. Speaker, he doesn't care about Canadians. He cares only about himself.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, these are the same promises that he's been making for 9 years. And instead of the theoretical utopia that he's promised, what Canadians are living through is hell, with tent cities popping up across the country in places they never existed before, with 2 million people lined up in food banks, 1 in 10 Torontonians included in that number, in a town where right now it is impossible for almost anyone to afford a home, and there are 256 tent cities. Why won't he recognize that these are the very real consequence of his policy of wackonomics?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as part of our plan to invest the most ambitious housing plan this country has ever seen, to invest in supports for seniors, supports for young people, supports for Canadians with disabilities. The Conservative leader is choosing to demonstrate what everyone knows Conservative parties do, which is protect the wealthiest and let everyone else fend for themselves. We are asking the wealthiest Canadians to pay a little bit more by raising the capital gains inclusion rate for anyone making over $250,000 in a given year on selling properties. He's standing with the wealthiest, not with the middle class and people working hard to join it.
Man, he's cuckoo.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the middle class doesn't exist after 9 years of this Prime Minister. Here are the facts. 76% of young people believe they'll never afford a home. 38% more homeless people. 256 homeless encampments in Toronto alone. 2 million people lined up at a food bank. 1 in 4 Canadians skipping meals because they can't afford the price of food. Mm-hmm. Is this what he meant when he said sunny ways for the middle class?
Sunny ways, sunny ways, sunny days.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we've seen throughout this session and indeed throughout his career, covering more than 19 years as a parliamentarian, that the leader of the Conservative Party is very quick to use sound bites that use Canadians, that exacerbate and exaggerate and indeed amplify the real concerns people are facing, but he is nowhere on solutions for them. He's standing against dental care, against pharmacare, against investments in the middle class and people working hard to join it, against investments to create jobs and a future for Canadians, because all he cares about is himself and his future.
Says the freaking narcissist.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, in Quebec, according to Canada Post, you don't
Thanks to the super chats, guys. I appreciate
to
that.
deliver mail or to sort it. They say that mail delivery people don't talk to anyone. Apparently, they don't chat with their colleagues at work. Apparently, they don't chat with people they're delivering mail to. Will the Prime Minister ask Canada Post to insist that its employees in Quebec actually speak French? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, our government has always been there to defend official languages in Canada. And in fact, we were the first federal government to recognize that we have a specific responsibility to protect French, including in Quebec. And that's why we will continue to ensure that the Official Languages Act is respected throughout the country, including in federal institutions like Canada Post. We will follow up on this issue because it is important to ensure that we're always standing up for our 2 official languages everywhere in Canada. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government says one thing in public about French. In fact, the type of announcements this government likes to make about French remind me more of Molière than Shakespeare. They're not serious because ultimately, in reality, this Liberal government is seeing French decline everywhere, and it invests in English, in supporting English. Does this Prime Minister recognize that his policies are actually harming French? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I understand that all the Bloc Québécois wants is to pick fights about identitarian matters. They only care about that, but actually,
really,
the government before us has done more to support official languages in the country.
This guy is shoving French down people's throats, penalizing them
be there to support
if they don't
official languages.
adhere to.
We will always be there to support official language minority communities. I know very well that the Bloc Québécois doesn't care at all about Francophone communities outside Quebec, but we will be there for official languages throughout the country.
The Honourable Member from Burnaby South.
In this last week of Parliament, the Prime Minister showed us whose side he's really on. At a time when 1 out of 4 Canadians are living in poverty, the out-of-touch Liberals voted against stronger penalties.
Cut off the coalition.
That are ripping off Canadians against banning mergers that hurt people. Why is this Prime Minister letting corporations rip off Canadians when 1 out of 4 are living in poverty?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as a government, we've been focused from day one on helping young Canadians succeed. That's why on day one we raised taxes on the wealthiest 1% and lowered them for the middle class, which the NDP at the time voted against. We've continued to step up on asking the wealthiest to pay a little more in this most recent budget by raising the capital gains inclusion tax so that people making $250,000 or more on capital gains share a little more of those profits with Canadians who actually need it. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, once again, the Conservatives have aligned themselves with the wealthiest in this country and are not there for people who need it.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Corporations continue to rip off Canadians. 25% des gens.
This capital gains tax hurts so many people that aren't in government. It's like Trudeau is trying to force everyone to work in government.
And this Prime Minister won't even support
because outside of government, you don't have that pension.
In my bill.
You have to save yourself.
I know that this Prime Minister hasn't actually experienced the challenges that people are going through, but how can he be this oblivious? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we recognize that Canadians are experiencing affordability challenges. And that is why we are delivering programs and investments that help people, whether it be $10 a day childcare, whether it be dental care, whether it be support for insulin or reproductive health, whether it be a code of conduct for big grocery chains to protect consumers, whether it be for 400,000 children who will have better school food programs. Thanks to our national program, we will continue to be there to support Canadians and to ensure that those who are better off pay their fair share.
A vote in Parliament in favor of banning the IRGC wasn't enough to convince the Prime Minister to list it as a terrorist organization 6 years ago.
Nope.
The organization killing 55 Canadians in an unprovoked attack on a passenger aircraft wasn't enough to make him do it. Even its role in the October 7th attack and its subsequent role in inciting hatred on our streets was not enough. It took a by-election for the Prime Minister to change his mind. Why is the Prime Minister always putting his political security above national security?
His own personal interest literally dictates how an entire country is run.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, today we've listed the IRGC as a terrorist entity. This sends that Canada will use all tools.
Look at the seals. Come on, stand up, Marcy. Come on, get up. Come on, Dominic, get up.
And its support of terrorism. This is yet another of the extremely strong measures we've taken against the Iranian regime, some of the strongest measures in the world.
They've been asking you to do that for over 2 years, you idiot.
The Prime Minister was also forced to release data from his own government showing that there would be a $30 billion a year hit to our economy as a result of his job-killing carbon tax, data that he had up until then been hiding. He's been going around claiming that Canadians are better off because they pay this tax. Did the calculations that went into his 8 out of 10 talking points include this $30 billion a year cost to the Canadian economy and to Canadian families?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Parliamentary Budget Officer has confirmed that 8 out of 10 Canadians in jurisdictions that have the federal carbon price in them get more money back from the Canada carbon rebate than they pay with this price on pollution. That is fact. Now, the Conservative leader has been using erroneous figures that the Parliamentary Budget Officer has said he made a mistake on to continue to attack our plan on fighting climate change and putting more money back in people's pockets. 8 out of 10 Canadians are better off, Mr. Speaker.
He should be in prison for this.
Does that include the $3 billion a year economic cost when distributed among those 8 out of 10 families?
Wow.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, the Conservatives are basing their attacks on climate action and affordability on erroneous calculations that the Parliamentary Budget Officer has admitted that he made. The fact that the Parliamentary Budget Officer also calculated without making any mistakes that 8 out of 10 Canadians are better off with the Canada carbon rebate and the price on pollution means that we are not only fighting climate change and bringing down emissions, we're also putting more money back in the pockets of Canadians who need support right now, money that the Conservative Party wants to take away.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
I'm not using Parliamentary Budget Officer numbers. I'm using numbers that this Liberal government has now published. This government has admitted that their carbon tax will hit Canadians with $30 billion in annual losses to wages and higher prices. That is their data. They published it. So once again, very specific question. When he claims that 8 out of 10 are better off, does that include the $30 billion of costs that he now admits that the government will impose on the economy?
I still haven't received a carbon tax rebate check.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know how much clearer I can be, but I'll try. Based on everything this government knows, all the studies we've made, all the studies that the Parliamentary Budget Officer has made, we can affirm very clearly, and it's backed up by independent economists, that 8 out of 10 families in jurisdictions across the country where the federal price on pollution applies do better off with more money in their pockets than the price on pollution costs them with the Canada carbon rebate. It's putting more money in the pockets of Canadians, and the Conservatives are wrong on this.
No, I put a poll in the live chat, everyone. For those that are like, if you're watching the replay, chances are you don't see that. Do you get more money back than what you put in for carbon rebate? It's actually the opposite. 8 out of 10 Canadians don't get more back than what they pay. These spreading blatant lies. Myself, nor my friends, nor family have ever received a carbon rebate.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He can't say yes, because he knows that when you take the $30 billion a year and divide it by the 17 million Canadian families, then you come up with almost $2,000 per Canadian family based on numbers published by his own government. So it's like him saying, you can afford this house as long as you don't take into consideration the down payment and the monthly mortgage payments. If you take out $30 billion of costs, you don't have a real calculation. So why doesn't he put the $30 billion back into the calculator and show Canadians whether they're really better off?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
It is actually quite stunning to see the leader lay it out so clearly that all of his math depends on one factor that he believes, which is climate change isn't real, according to the leader of the...
No, it's we don't have to tax people to fix the climate.
There are no costs to Canadians of extreme weather events. There are no costs to Canadians about degrading competition when the world is switching towards greener solutions. If you don't believe in climate change, then his math works. But if you know that climate change is a real threat to Canadians and the economy, then we need to act, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, look at his face. He knows he's going to get billions of dollars richer. Ugh, it's disgusting.
Leader of the Opposition.
No, all you have to accept is the fact that his carbon tax will not reduce by 1 penny the cost of climate change to Canadians. It will not eliminate one flood, one drought, one storm, one anything. This carbon tax literally does nothing to change the weather or the climate. What it does is makes Canadians poorer. So will he finally admit that all along he's been misleading Canadians, that he knew he had the data that Canadians pay more and get less and get screwed over by the carbon tax?
Urge all members to try to find ways that for polite words in the House of Commons. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Soon to be the leader of the opposition.
Way the Conservative leader's math makes sense is when he believes that climate change has no cost for Canadians. Canadians right across this country are seeing the impact of climate events, the impact of the need to innovate and create greener, cleaner jobs for the future as we deliver our resources to the world. The fact that he doesn't believe in climate change means that he doesn't believe the climate action that puts more money in people's pockets is worth it. Well, that's exactly where
it's not worth it.
And we're going to continue to help Canadians get through this.
It's absolutely not worth it. And Canadians agree.
Chambly.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Now we have Bill 96 on French in Quebec, but American businesses are pressuring the Joe Biden government to try to get the U.S. to impose sanctions to undermine Quebec's language law. Will the Prime Minister stand up to the U.S.? Will the Prime Minister protect legislation that was legitimately adopted in Quebec? Or will he let our main trade partner dictate our language laws? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I know that for years, the Quebec government has had excellent representatives in Washington and elsewhere in the world to talk about issues around Quebec legislation. Then, meanwhile, we, as a bilingual
filling up my
country
coffee, I'll be back.
French and English throughout the country, we will be there in our negotiations, including in the NAFTA renegotiation that we did several years ago with the American government. We will continue to protect Canada's culture and linguistic realities, as well as the special realities for our citizens throughout the country. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, this government seems to be allergic to the word yes. We know that we will not be able to offer French language training for immigrants. We know that unilingual public servants are being hired in Quebec. We know that there have been a number of other issues that undermine the French language in Quebec. There has been funding, in fact, to undermine Bill 96 right up to the Supreme Court. Does the Prime Minister understand that for Francophones elsewhere in Canada and North America, who we may be the only allies for, do they understand that this is the only way to preserve their future and it's doing the opposite? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I know that the leader of the Bloc Québécois is always trying to pick fights. And I would remind him that we have more Quebecers in our Liberal caucus than he has in his caucus. We will all
on Monday, Trudeau's going to lose
in Quebec and
the longest
Canada.
Liberal riding.
We will invest hundreds of thousands. We will invest hundreds of millions of dollars in the French language. We will offer French language for immigrants. We will continue to defend French throughout the country. And we will pay particular attention to Quebec because we know that Quebec must remain a place with the French language being in the first place, and we will always support it.
L'opposition. La semaine dernière, le Bloc.
Last week, the Bloc Québécois voted to increase taxes for Quebec farmers, all that during a cost of food crisis, and to increase costs for housing developers during a housing crisis, to increase taxes on doctors while we're experiencing a shortage of doctors, and to increase taxes on Quebec SMEs, all that during an economic crisis. Why is this Liberal bloc always trying to take away Quebec money to instead fund the colossal central and centralizing Liberal government? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I don't think I really followed
the wrong, dishonourable Prime Minister.
But I will say that the Bloc Québécois is a party that tries to pick fights with the federal government, but even so, the Bloc recognizes that the Conservative Party is passionate about defending the ultra-wealthy and that they're not trying to help people who actually need help. And that's not a good thing for the country, no matter what your political allegiance. The fact that the Conservatives keep trying to undermine initiatives that would get the most wealthy among us to pay their fair share to help youth, seniors, and so on, that's really shocking. And I'm glad that the Bloc Québécois is aligned with us on this.
L'honorable chef de l'opposition.
Monsieur le Président, le Bloc.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc Québécois is always aligned with the Liberals to keep them in power.
Yep.
We know that this is basically
nasty coalition.
We learned today from Angus Reid that 1 out of 5 Canadians earning between $50,000 and $100,000 a year, 1 in 5 believe that they will be affected by this Bloc Liberal increase in taxes. But if the Prime Minister wants to deny that, well, there's a very clear way to settle this. Will the Liberal government support an amendment to exclude everyone who possesses less than 1% of the wealth in Canada from the tax increase? Will the government do this, yes or no? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, everyone in this House knows very well that there are issues where I disagree with the leader of the Bloc Québécois. We've heard about that many, many times. But sometimes we do see eye to eye. And then we stand up against the Conservative Party because they are always supporting the wealthiest Canadians. They always want to protect the wealthiest people. And do that instead of investing in housing, instead of helping seniors, instead of creating more childcare spaces. We know that we must stand up for the middle class and those who are working hard to join it. While meanwhile, the Conservatives just want to protect their ultra-wealthy buddies. That's not how we're going to get a better economy for everyone.
Rich friends, people who make between $50,000 and $100,000 a year are too rich for him. I guess he wants to make them poor. He's succeeding at that. Yep. 1 in 5 Canadians told Angus Reid that they will be affected, including 1 in 5 of people making between $50,000 and $100,000 a year, Mr. Speaker. Another tax targeting the middle class by this promise-breaking Prime Minister. If those Canadians are wrong and they won't be affected, will the Prime Minister announce that he will amend his tax increase law to exclude anybody making less than $100,000 a year?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our increase of the capital gains inclusion rate will affect people who make more than $250,000 in...
Yeah, man, that's not really that big when you have investments.
Investments within a given year.
A house from 2015 to now would be worth way more than that in capital gains.
Profits, so that we can make sure we're investing in young people who can afford housing, so that we help seniors with the cost of dental care, so we deliver free insulin and free prescription contraceptives across this country. We're asking the wealthiest and the most successful to pay a little bit more so we can help those who need it, and the Conservatives are choosing to stand with the wealthiest.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Socialist bafflegab. Not my words. Those are the words of Scott Bryson, former Liberal president of the Treasury Board, the very person to whom the Prime Minister trusted all of his spending. Add to that Morneau and John Manley, 2 former finance ministers who have now said they are against this tax increase, and David Dodge, a Liberal former governor of the Bank of Canada. Now that all these Liberals say that the Prime Minister is up to socialist bafflegab, will he reverse this job-killing tax on Canadians?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it should actually be no surprise to Canadians to see the Conservatives, after pretending to care about workers, after pretending to care about vulnerable people, revert to type and stand against and ask for the wealthiest to pay a little bit more in taxes so we can invest even more in Canadians who need it, whether it's through a national school food program, whether it's expanding places in childcare, whether it's delivering dental care for seniors and Canadians with disabilities. These are all things the Conservatives stand against, just like they stand against asking the wealthiest to pay their fair share. That's a shame, Mr. Speaker.
Wow.
The honourable member from Port Moody, Coquitlam.
Mr. Speaker,
oh, Pierre was standing up.
Is hurting seniors in Port Moody. The Liberals have promised to build more affordable housing, but yet they continue to sit on their hands and drag their feet. The closed Canada Post Office at 45 Mary Street is a good location for quality affordable homes for seniors. New affordable homes at this location has the support of the city and the community, but the Liberals have yet to put a shovel in the ground. Why won't the Prime Minister step up and build the affordable homes seniors need in Port Moody?
Good question. Good question.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are pleased that we've been able to contribute to a massive number of seniors' homes across the country over the past years. But we also know we get to do even more with the most ambitious plan on housing this country has ever seen. From increased density to more affordable homes to using public lands and federally held lands like post office buildings and Department of National Defence properties to build more homes that are affordable for Canadians. This is our plan to ensure that we are delivering for seniors and for future generations. While the Conservatives want to sell public lands off to the highest bidders, we're going to make sure long-term leases give affordable homes for seniors and all Canadians.
The honourable member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Mr. Speaker, finally, after years of dragging their heels, word is out that the Liberals are moving open net fish farms out of BC coastal waters. Most First Nations and British Columbians want to see these polluting farms out of our waters. But where is the plan? The Liberals have spent years delaying on a real job strategy for all those impacted. Coastal communities cannot be left behind. Will the Prime Minister's decision include the delivery of necessary funds to support impacted First Nations and coastal communities?
Hear, hear.
Trudeau has completely abandoned the First Nations.
Protecting the environment is one of the top priorities of this government and has been since we took office in 2015, as has reconciliation. And as we move forward on the right kinds of things to protect our environment, including protecting wild salmon, we are also going to be there to make sure that we are supporting Indigenous communities with economic opportunities and growth to continue to be able to provide for their communities, to continue to be able to thrive in Canada's economy of the future.
The honourable member from Winnipeg South Centre.
Mr. Speaker, as we approach National Indigenous Peoples Day on June 21st, Indigenous and non-Indigenous people from across Canada will engage in meaningful celebrations. At the same time, we will undertake important reflections of our past and on the path that we are on to secure a better future. Manitoba is home to Canada's largest Indigenous population. Alongside our provincial colleagues, we've been working hard to build bridges through new investments and partnerships, including with Canada's first ever First Nations Premier. Can the Prime Minister offer this House his reflections on the important progress that we have made together on our collective journey towards truth and reconciliation? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I thank the member for Winnipeg South Centre for his commitment to reconciliation. We will always be there for Indigenous people, and we'll keep working with them in full partnership.
Dude, Indigenous communities right now in Canada, a lot of them have brown water.
Indigenous Governor General and Indigenous Supreme Court Justice, and we created the Indigenous Languages Commissioner. We also recently passed legislation, C-29, to keep future governments accountable on the path of reconciliation to work with Indigenous peoples. We're all excited to celebrate National Indigenous Peoples Day with Indigenous communities later this week.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
So the Liberal Premier of Newfoundland says this Prime Minister's carbon tax will harm working class people just trying to heat their homes or drive to work. The former Liberal Finance Minister, which he appointed, says that this latest job-killing tax that he's brought in will drive investment out of the country. And the Liberal Treasury Board president that he appointed accuses the Prime Minister of socialist bafflegab. With Liberals accusing him of socialist bafflegab, will he just admit that he's actually not even a Liberal? He's Canada's first NDP Prime Minister.
That's pretty freaking funny, man.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have demonstrated over the past 9 years that investing in the middle class and people working hard to join it can create growth for the country, and that's why we're continuing to step up to put that growth for work by putting more money in the pockets of Canadians, whether it's through a plan to fight climate change that puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadian families across the country, whether it's by moving forward on asking the wealthiest who are selling off profitable investments to share a little more of those profits with Canadians who need it, by countering the housing crisis, by investing in young people. But once again, Conservatives stand with the wealthiest, we stand with the middle class.
Here, here. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Countering the housing crisis, he doubled housing costs, helping young people. 76% of them say they can't afford a home after 9 years of this Prime Minister. But it's getting worse. The Prime Minister gave $500 million to the Liberal NDP Mayor and Council at Toronto City Hall, supposedly to accelerate home building. What is the consequence? Since that money was handed over, Toronto City Hall has increased wait times and costs for building permits by 50%. Why does he keep forcing taxpayers to bloat the gatekeeping bureaucracies instead of doing what we want? Build the homes.
I know that we are coming to the end of the summer, end of the session, and members by Friday, and that members sometimes might be a little bit more excited. I'm going to ask all members to please not take the floor unless they're recognized by the chair, because I can hear their voices pretty well. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the challenging fact that the Leader of the Opposition is trying to avoid is that just last week it was demonstrated that housing starts are up across this country, and that is part of where we have been investing with communities across the country in the Housing Accelerator Fund that is delivering more homes built faster. Indeed, we're going to see close to 4 million new homes in the coming decade because Canadians know that more density, better use of public lands, better protection for renters, better math for home builders to be able to build more affordable homes. These are the things that are going to make a difference in Canadians' lives.
Here, here. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Better math? Well, I think we can all agree this Prime Minister needs better math. But here is the math. The Altus Group says that Canada's development charges are significantly higher, and our wait times for getting building permits are the second slowest in the entire OECD. And what is this Prime Minister doing? Giving $500 million to the City of Toronto, which has just increased its development charges and its permit wait times by 50%. So once again, why does the Prime Minister keep funding the gatekeepers instead of removing them so we can build the homes?
That would be incredible.
Again, I'm going to ask
let's get stuff done.
Particularly the member from Hamilton Centre, if he could please not heckle people while they have the floor.
Uh-oh.
Order.
It's going to become like a zoo.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, here's a concrete example of how one makes the math work to build more homes. Last year, we made a decision to take off the GST on purpose-built middle-income apartment buildings, on the kind of apartment buildings we need more of right across the country. Within a few days after having announced that we would no longer be charging the GST on new apartment buildings, thousands of new units were being announced by developers across the country because suddenly they were able to bring projects onto the table that hadn't been on it before. That's how you invest in housing. That's how you deliver for Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, permits take 3 times longer to get in Canada than in the U.S. and in the U.K. And in the last 2 years in Toronto, the wait time has gone from 21 months to 32 months, all while the Prime Minister has given that bureaucracy $500 billion to subsidize their building blocking bureaucracy. Why won't he follow my common sense plan to require municipalities permit 15% more housing completions as a condition of getting their federal funds?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let's be very clear. The Conservative leader has no plan to address the housing crisis. When he was housing minister under the Harper government, he had no plan to address the housing crisis. That government decided to get out of any federal engagement in housing, and we're seeing those consequences even 10 years later. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, that his plan to reimpose GST on apartment building construction would slow down apartment building construction. His plan to withdraw funds that are needed for densification and permitting would slow down housing construction. That's not what Canadians need.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, forest caribou is in danger of extinction with the help from the Conservatives, and that must not happen. Thousands of jobs linked to forestry, one of the greenest and most important resources in Quebec, are in danger of disappearing with the help of the Liberals. I accept neither. Does the Prime Minister agree to say that the issue of forest caribou is a test of our ability to reconcile resources and the environment? Does he agree that the solution should be negotiated between Quebec, the forestry industry, and Indigenous people? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, over the past 10 years, since before we were in power, the Government of Canada has worked hard to help the Government of Quebec present a plan to protect caribou and reach our common goals to protect the environment and protect jobs. The federal government is always open to collaborating with the Government of Quebec and to support it while it puts in place measures to ensure the recovery of the species as part of a comprehensive strategy. We are ready to support local communities, jobs, and of course, the dynamic Quebec economy. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. If the government imposes orders, it will be an economic disaster for the forest. If Quebec doesn't have an agreement with industry, Indigenous people, unions, and more, forest caribou will be in more danger. Conservatives think they can solve this, but in a year and a half, things will be shut down, jobs will be gone. I don't know what the Prime Minister will say, Mr. Speaker, but I say that the Bloc Québécois and I will invest in looking for negotiated solutions agreed upon with the Government of Quebec, the only authority on the forest. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we agree to work hand in hand in partnership with Quebec.
Exhausting hearing
exactly
things that are
we've done
only
for years.
about Quebec.
It's been 10 years that different federal governments have been working to protect caribou and also to protect communities and jobs. We are there to work in partnership with Quebec. After so many years, we need to show that we are a country with the rule of law, that we will respect our own laws on protecting species at risk. That is what all Quebecers and Canadians expect.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
It's ironic to see the Bloc look for a federal role in a field of provincial jurisdiction. The Bloc member this morning said that the federal government is able to meddle and kill forestry worker jobs. And if the Bloc hadn't voted to keep this Prime Minister in power, this order wouldn't have existed in the first place. Mr. Speaker, Conservatives will cancel this order to protect jobs and to allow the government to protect nature and industry. That is common sense. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Conservative Party shows day after day that they don't understand that the only way to build a healthy economy for Canadians for the years to come is to protect the environment as well. They refuse to accept any responsibility to protect the environment. And yes, other parties in this House and the vast majority of Canadians understand very well that we need to work to protect the environment and work to protect the economy. It's only the Conservatives who've made their choice to let down the environment and the future of Canadians. The Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, Quebec, the Quebec nation, is able to protect nature and jobs. without interference from this Bloc Liberal incompetent government here in Ottawa. We believe that we can do both, but it's a decision for the government of Quebec on how to protect nature. 30,000 jobs are at play. Will the Prime Minister cancel the radical order by his Liberal minister?
By the
Honourable Prime
first ever NDP Prime Minister.
So-called radical order is based on a bill put forward by the Prime Minister, who, according to experts, did the most to protect the environment in Canada, Brian Mulroney, a progressive Conservative. It's unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, to see how much the Conservative Party is denying something that progressive Conservatives understood very well. We can only build a strong economy by protecting the environment. Brian Mulroney showed that often during his career. The Conservatives have forgotten all of that, and they are attacking the planet and our future. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition, Brian Mulroney, knew that protecting the environment had nothing to do with increasing taxes and killing jobs, Mr. Speaker.
Liberal scandals. The RCMP commissioner just to confirm that there are now 6 active criminal investigations into contracts awarded by this NDP Liberal government. That's on top of the $60 million Arrive Scam Act, which saw $20 million go to 2 contractors who work out of their basement and don't even do IT work. Will the Prime Minister promise to personally cooperate with this criminal investigation so that Canadians can know where their money went?
That would make it the first time ever.
Speaker, this situation is obviously unacceptable, which is why authorities are looking into the procurement process. Anyone who took advantage of our COVID responses to save Canadian lives should face consequences. All federal contracts with these companies have been suspended as the investigations continue.
The Honourable Member for Ottawa-Vanier. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The pandemic and the war in Europe led to a crisis around the world. Our government has worked hard to fight inflation, and our plan is working. Canada has become the first G7 country to reduce its interest rates. As the Conservatives know how to do only one thing, cut.
All right, folks, for those who haven't, now would be a great time to smash that like button.
Our plan is to make life
I think we have a little bit of Pierre and Trudeau left.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for Ottawa-Vanier for her question and for her hard work. Too many Canadians are struggling with the cost of living. That is why Canadians need a government who supports them. That is why we are investing in programs like dental care, pharmacare, daycare services, and the Canada Child Benefit that will be sent to millions of families tomorrow. At each stage, the Conservatives have tried to block us from supporting Canadians because despite their cheap slogans, they don't care about Canadians, just themselves. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Taking care of your friends, Mr. Speaker. This Prime Minister has literally doubled the amount spent on outside consultants, all the way up to $21 billion a year. That works out to $1,400 per family in taxes just to fund federal government consultants. One of them is $200 million to the Prime Minister's famous consulting firm, McKinsey. No wonder Canadians are forced to pay higher taxes. Will the Prime Minister finally put an end to this costly, self-licking ice cream cone and stop sending the bill to Canadians?
What the fuck?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the only Canadians we're asking to pay a little more are those who've been very successful in these past years and are able to make more than $250,000 in profit from selling off investments. These are things that we think we can be asking of Canadians who've been successful to support Canadians who need a little more help, whether it's with the most ambitious housing plan this country's ever seen, whether it's dental care that's already delivered supports in just 8 weeks to 200,000 seniors, or whether it's more spaces in childcare. But the Conservatives continue to protect the wealthiest instead of supporting Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
That's a little bit rich coming from him as he raises taxes on single moms for the crime of driving to the grocery store while he treats himself to a jet-setting experience where the food on the plane of a 6-day trip was $220,000, beef brisket, parsley potatoes with truffle oil, beef tenderloin with port wine sauce, braised lamb shanks, and even cheesecake with pistachio brittle. Mr. Speaker, with Canadians lined up at the food bank, what's on the menu for this Prime Minister this summer?
Oh, man.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives continue to use cheap attacks and slogans when they stand against support directly for Canadians.
Oh, Speaker's going to interrupt him. You can't do that.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister from the top, please.
Speaker, the Conservative leader continues to use cheap attacks and slogans while he tries to hide from the fact that he is standing with the wealthiest Canadians and against the idea of them paying a little more so that young Canadians can buy a home, so that seniors can get their teeth fixed, so that young families can find a place in childcare. These are the investments we're making that they are standing against, Mr. Speaker. We will continue to deliver for Canadians who need them while he chooses to protect the interests of his wealthy friends.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, there's nothing cheap about the $220,000 that he spent on one trip for food alone.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition asked this question. I'm going to ask all members to please keep their voices down. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition from the top.
There's nothing cheap, Mr. Speaker, about the Prime Minister spending $220,000 for food alone on a 6-day jet-setting tour for himself. All the while, homelessness up 38%. Toronto has 256 homeless encampments, where 1 in 10 people in that city are now eating at food banks. They join 2 million Canadians. The good news is life was not like this before this Prime Minister, and it won't be like this after he's gone. Can we not have a carbon tax election now to choose a government that will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime?
Bring it home. Bring it home. Get some W's in the chat, folks. Bring it home. Oh, come on, bro. Come on. Bring it home. Bring it home.
It smells like the cup.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
That's naughty.
Speaker, once again, we see the extent of...
Look at that. Bring it home. Bring it home.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives over this past session have stood in this House to stand against dental care for seniors. They've stood in this House to stand against expanding child care investments in spaces. They've stood in this House to stand against the kinds of investments that are helping Canadians with diabetes, Canadians afford birth control. These are the choices that they are making. Now, they're filled with slogans and bumper stickers that don't solve problems but amplify anger, while we are focused on supporting Canadians. Canadians can make their choice about the kind of country they want to live in.
action. Oh my God. Drop some W's in the chat for the Conservatives. Screw you, Mr. Speaker.
Woodbridge.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are looking for strong action from their government on making housing more affordable. The results of decades of Conservative government inaction are in. And it's no wonder. When the Leader of the Opposition was Housing Minister, he only got 6 units built. Since 2015, we've been committed to getting the government back into housing. Can the Prime Minister...
I truly cannot hear the honourable member ask this question. I'm going to ask all members, please, to please not take the floor while an honourable member is asking a question or while an honourable member is answering a question. Ask the member, please, to keep it together for a couple of more minutes. The honourable member from Vaughan Woodbridge from the top, please.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are looking for strong action from their government on making housing more affordable. The results of decades of Conservative government inaction are in, and it's no wonder when the Leader of the Opposition was Housing Minister, he was a disaster, and he only got 6 units built. Since 2015, we've been committed to getting the government back into housing. Can the Prime Minister provide an update on the government is making life more affordable through housing investments?
I heard he built a baby barn.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for Vaughan Woodbridge for his question and for his extraordinary hard work. For decades, governments have ignored the important role the federal government has to play in housing. That's why we brought the federal government back into the business of home building, working through an ambitious plan to build 4 million more homes. And as we just saw this week, Canada's housing starts are going up, with more homes being built right across the country. While the Conservatives would abandon the most vulnerable so their rich friends can pay less, we will not rest until we ensure fairness for every generation.
Hear, hear.
The honourable member from Edmonton Griesbach.
The Trade Winds to Success Training Society helps Indigenous people build up the trade skills we need to rebuild our own communities and our own future. Not only does the organization create a pathway to apprenticeship, but also guarantees Indigenous peoples opportunity for good paying jobs. Despite the Liberals' commitment to support them, no movement has been made. Is this yet another empty promise to Indigenous peoples? When will the Prime Minister establish a 5-year funding plan for Trade Winds to Success so they can continue to empower Indigenous labour?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as my colleague well knows, we are unequivocally committed to working in partnership with First Nations, Inuit and Métis communities to advance self-determination, reconciliation and economic opportunity. We have indeed tripled investments into Indigenous communities since 2015, with $32 billion in investments expected in 2024-25 alone. Budget 2024 includes over $1 billion to improve access to proper health care for Indigenous peoples, $338 million to support Indigenous entrepreneurship, and a monumental investment of $5 billion for the Indigenous Loan Support Program. There's lots more to do, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Saanich, Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The parliamentarians who serve on the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians have done an amazing job and deserve the thanks of all Canadians. In the face of foreign interference, we need to put Canada first and commit to working together. My question to the Prime Minister is this: is the Prime Minister open to working over the summer with all members of Parliament with top secret security clearance who are willing, in a confidential setting, to work in the hope of determining a shared course of action to reduce the threat of foreign interference?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Leader of the Green Party and other party leaders who've taken this issue seriously by getting their security clearances. We feel that the public inquiry is the best place for these discussions to continue, and we're pleased that the Commission has agreed to study this. Unfortunately, the Leader of the Opposition would actually have to get his top secret security clearance in order to have a top secret discussion amongst party leaders.
And that's where we're gonna end the stream, folks. That was a very, very good question period. I'm pretty satisfied. I'm optimistic that they're going to be here tomorrow, but I don't know for certain. But we're gonna have to wait and see how that plays out. I do want you guys to just stick around. Don't quit off the stream yet, because I've done something new. So I've just premiered a new video about Jagmeet and an interview he's done with CTV on Mr. Sunshine Extra. And when I end this stream, it should, in theory, automatically redirect you. But towards the end of the question period there, I just set that up. So we're going to have to wait and see. So I hope you continue watching past this question period and into the premiere on the Extra channel of that interview. Ladies and gentlemen, in case there isn't another question period, it was awesome. It was a pleasure doing business, doing this entertainment, doing this community event with you guys. I look forward to, you know what? I'm going to go live again tomorrow. Screw it. I'm going to go live. I'm going to go live again tomorrow. We'll see you guys tomorrow. It's not the end. We'll see you tomorrow. But summer break is coming up. So just be mindful that question period is very much coming to an end. We know it's coming, even though we don't want it to actually happen. Everybody, this was awesome. I had a lot of fun today. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being part of the community. Canadian Abroad says, you rock, House Canada. No, you guys rock. You guys were awesome. So many likes, so many W's in the chat, very engaged. It makes it tolerable. You know what I'm saying? Question period is... It sucks, man. It sucks doing it alone. So it's awesome that we can all come together and do it together. Anyways, peace and love, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope that you guys continue watching after this stream and segue into the live stream on the Extra channel, or the premiere on the Extra channel. I'll see you guys over there. Bye for